After watching this, I'm going to be looking forward to its comparison film, Benign. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a film that I'm a little late to discussing, Malignant. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases, older films, hidden gems, and so much more on a near daily basis. But let's jump right into it and let's talk about Malignant. This stars Annabelle Wallis as Madison. Paralyzed by fear from shocking visions, her torment worsens as she discovers her waking dreams are terrifying realities. So I'm just going to say this up front. I normally don't do spoiler reviews of newer films, and this isn't going to be an incredibly long review, but I'm extremely late to discussing this, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows the ending by this point. It's almost impossible to discuss this movie without the ending, so this is going to be a spoiler video. So if you haven't still seen Malignant by now and you wish to know absolutely nothing, this is your spoiler warning. Go watch the movie, then come back to this. But anyway, here we go. This is written by Akilah and is directed by James Wan in what's his first completely original film since The Conjuring in 2013. Now, as far as I'm concerned, James Wan is one of the masters of modern horror. He gave us one of my favorite horror franchises in Saw, as well as another of my favorite horror movies of the last decade in The Conjuring, which itself spawned its own franchise, though the rest of those films besides the second one aren't as great if you ask me. And he's proved he can do well in other genres like action, with Furious 7 and Aquaman both being a lot of fun. And for his first return to the horror genre after Aquaman, he goes for something a little different, and it's something that's been putting a lot of people off, because this isn't the movie that was ultimately advertised to us. I was honestly expecting something a bit more straightforward in the vein of films like The Conjuring and Insidious. The trailers play it as if it's going to be this creepy, if seemingly a bit repetitive, moody little film, but instead he goes for camp, as opposed to his usual straightforward atmospheric horror. Now, not to say this isn't atmospheric, it's very colorful with these saturated color schemes, even when taking place in these darker settings, and it really tries engrossing you in this little world, but it doesn't necessarily go for anything that I call chilling. This isn't a particularly scary film. Like, even though Madison has these visions, they're nothing I'd call frightening. However, they can be brutal, and what this film goes for is taking these action-packed thrills and mixing them with the campier elements influenced by giallo films, which, for those who don't know what that is, it's an Italian horror thriller genre that was known as a predecessor to modern slashers. And there was a silliness to those films that was heavily present all throughout this. There's rarely a scene that goes for subtlety. There are a lot of moments that go for overly dramatic reveals, moments of exposition that are played up as more intense than they are, and everything said as if it's this huge revelation. Madison's natural reaction to nearly every situation is to scream at the top of her lungs. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this angle that they went for. It's something that audiences seem generally divided over, as some didn't seem too sure if it was meant to be a joke or serious, but it was purposely meant to feel a little silly, and the tone makes that pretty clear from the get-go, in this opening scene at a hospital where we hear this overdramatic line delivery by a doctor right off the bat. And I had a lot of fun with that, and what I appreciated is how everyone seemed like they were all in on the joke, and they just went with it and hammed it up at every chance they can get, especially Annabelle Wallis. I'm not quite as familiar with her work in general, as I've mainly just seen her in small supporting performances, but I loved her commitment to the material and just how wild it got, and she makes for a fun lead. Now, did every single moment necessarily work? I don't think so. While the film was consistent with the tone it went for, and it wears its silliness right on its sleeve, I wouldn't say that I found every moment to be as laugh-out-loud hilarious as it was attempting to be. There were times it would try to be tongue-in-cheek with its purposely poor delivery or over-the-top yelling, and while I appreciate what it was going for, I'd say it came off as a tad grating rather than having this fun, so bad it's good feel. But this wasn't anything that I'd say ruined the movie, as for the most part, it landed, and because of how grand feels right from the start, when it switches gears to its more slasher heavy elements, it didn't feel jarring. And I gotta say, when it goes in on its action, it goes in. Like, I don't want to get too graphic, so I won't get too specific, but there would be moments where someone would make this really slick move, like this 1-2 punch, and it would be choreographed so well in a way that both felt creative and thrilling, where it kind of makes you squirm at the same time. And when I wasn't too busy laughing at a lot of the cheesy line delivery, I was engrossed by these action scenes, and I think it falls back on what I said at the beginning of this, which is that Wan can do a phenomenal job when it comes to staging action. Now, like I've said, it's almost impossible to talk about this without talking about the third act, and I've already given the spoiler warning earlier, so we're just jumping right into this. For much of the film, it does play a bit into my expectations, where it would be fun, but a little rinse and repeat in terms of structure. Madison sees a vision, we get a brutal killing, colorful imagery, and repeat. It was what I thought it might be, though now with the unexpected camp edge. When we get into that third act, though, this becomes something else, because for much of the film, we're led to believe that this killer named Gabriel, who Madison thought was just her imaginary friend, may or may not just be a figment of her imagination. But it turns out he's more than just a real person. In fact, Gabriel is actually Madison's twin, who lives in the back of her head and was dormant for years until he was awakened at the beginning of the movie when Madison was pushed into a wall. And he takes control of her body with her moving backwards in these parkour-style moves. And it is just one of the wildest things I've seen all year, which I think was the case for a lot of people. From there, it becomes an all-out bloody action thriller, with Gabriel taking full control while in a jail cell and going up against a bunch of prisoners who provoke him in what's easily the best scene of the movie, and it leads to an intense adrenaline rush of a third act that I know not everyone will be on board with for just how out there it gets, but I know I was. I think people's enjoyment of the film is ultimately going to come down to how willing they are to accept the ridiculous nature of, well, everything. The script, the acting, the cheesy music, the absolutely ridiculous action. Like I said, it purposely goes for the so bad it's good vibe, and it's a matter of how on board you are with what the ultimate joke is. I know when it comes to genre films, whether it be horror, thriller, sci-fi, superhero movies, or whatever it is, I do feel like there's quite a large audience that doesn't like it when these films try mixing these comedic elements, whether it be a line of dialogue to cut the tension or going for straight up camp. To whatever degree it is, it does tend to not always land with a decent amount of audience members who want something completely serious and straightforward. And if you're someone who likes your horror movies played completely straight-faced and without any comedic bits or tongue-in-cheek vibes, then more than likely you're going to not like this. But for me, I'm always down for that sort of stuff, and while it didn't quite always land, I'd say it was a refreshing change of pace. Malignant is the definition of ridiculous, from the way it starts off as a bad horror soap opera to its absolutely bonkers third act twist where it turns into an action-packed parkour thriller. It's an absolutely wild ride. While the entire joke of it isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, and understandably so, and it isn't exactly a really scary film, it does prove at the very least that James Wan is one of the most creative minds working in the business today. It offers us one of the most unique experiences of 2021, and it's certainly destined to live on as a cult classic. Malignant gets a 7.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Malignant, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did the campier elements work for you? Do you have a favorite James Wan movie? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.